Hi there, this is David, and as we all know, today the 3DS shop has shut down. It's the end of an era, and there's a lot of great JRPGs on that eShop that we can no longer access. But I was talking to some of my friends, and it got me thinking that although there are some that we can't access, there are plenty others that we actually still can. We can play a lot of these 3DS games elsewhere on other systems, whether it's the Switch, whether it's mobile, whether it's PC. Now, of course, you're not going to be finding most of the Nintendo's exclusives on there, but you will be finding quite a bit of RPGs, 28 of them to be exact. I did a lot of research, did a lot of looking up, going through the entire 3DS RPG library to look and see what actually is exclusive just to that system and what you can play elsewhere. So here today I want to go over all those other games that you can find on different systems. First up, we have Adventure Bar Story for mobile platforms as well as the PSP. This looks to be pretty much like an RPG Maker game where you run a bar and you go out into the world and you find various ingredients to make recipes that you sell at your bar. You get to know the townsfolk around town and you have to fight battles and whatnot. It's pretty basic, pretty generic. If you're into life sims and Harvest Moony type stuff, things like that, you might find enjoyment here. But for the most part, it's pretty generic. From the makers of Adventure Bar Story comes Adventure Labyrinth Story. Yeah, this one can be found on the PlayStation Vita. It's basically a roguelike. It has randomized dungeons, randomized items. If you like these sort of games, it's okay. It's very simple. It's very linear. It kind of has subpar visuals and things like that. It's nothing too groundbreaking, but again, we're going through the games and we're mentioning it. Now, we got some good stuff. The Alliance Alive, which is actually released for mobile, PC, Switch, and PS4. This game was shockingly like one of my favorite games, actually. I really enjoyed this game. I reviewed the remastered version way back on my channel, and I listed this as like the best 3DS game released. It's up there with like Radiant Historia, and as far as like really good 3DS games. It starts with a scenario system where you go through and you control various parties, and then they all join up together. There's multiple worlds to explore. Has kind of like a Saga leveling system. Really fun story, really fun characters, and honestly, it is a great game. Be sure to pick this one up. Next up, we have Ash, which is released on mobile platforms. This is a good game to play on the go. It's a turn-based title in the same vein as early Final Fantasy or even Dragon Quest. It has turn-based battles, a fun little storyline. This is just a throwback to simpler times, simpler games. And I think that you'll have fun with this one if you play it on mobile. It's probably actually better suited for mobile because it's just like a pick up and play, very basic, very generic type game. Citizens of Earth is on the PS4, the Vita, the Wii U, and the PC. I remember whenever this one first came out, everybody and their mother was going on about it, saying that it was like the second coming of Earthbound, and I don't know if I would go that far saying that it's better than Earthbound, but it is witty, it is charming, it is different, it is kind of nonsensical, and if you are into off-kilter, fun RPGs that don't take itself too seriously, then I think that you'll like Citizens of Earth. Code of Princess, released for the PC and the Switch. This is kind of like an old school action RPG, side-scrolling, beat 'em up. You play as a princess and you beat the shit out of your enemies. It's a spiritual successor to Guardian Heroes, and there's actually online mode and co-op modes, or you can just play single player like I always do. Whenever you level up, you can kind of increase your stats and get new weapons and stuff like that. It's kind of funny, pretty witty, and it actually has some pretty decent voice acting too. So if you're looking for, a beat 'em up sort of thing, kind of reminds me of what was that game on the SNES that I used to play? King of Dragons. It reminds me of King of Dragons. Man, that's a throwback for me. Conception 2, Children of the Seven Stars, is also found on the PlayStation Vita. And this is a dungeon crawler meets dating sim. And honestly, it's just kind of icky, I've got to say. It's like you romance these girls, and then you have like star children who you fight, but then you romance your children and stuff. It's just icky. It's a long game, and I remember whenever this first came out and people were going on about it, and I was like, what? I guess I'll give it a shot, and yeah. Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3. My favorite games, yeah. They're all on mobile, the NES, the Game Boy Color, the Switch, the PS4, and the SNES. And these form the Erdrick trilogy. Dragon Quest 1, very basic, save the princess, save the world by defeating the Dragon Lord. Dragon Quest 2, you gather up your two cousins, you fight together, you beat Hargon, but you get a ship and it's open world. Dragon Quest 3, it completes the trilogy. It has job classes. It has party changes at the end whenever you go to like the Shrine of Dharma at level 20. You can fly around the world. You can create parties from pilgrims and wizards and fighters and warriors and soldiers. You go around, you collect the orbs, and you go into a world of darkness. Has multiple world maps. Cannot say enough good things about all three of these games. I love Dragon Quest, like my favorite series of all time. If you haven't played Dragon Quest yet, play it. What are you doing? Play it. Dragon Quest 7. This can also be found on the original PlayStation, but it's not as good as the one on the 3DS, unfortunately. But hey, it is what it is. It all first started on the original PlayStation, and it was long, and it was clunky, and there's a lot of like, oh my god moments, and like, where is that tablet moments, and what do I do now moments that the 3DS version did fix. So yeah, you're playing an inferior version whenever you play the original PlayStation version, but hey, if you want to play the game legally, that is where you need to go to do that. That's where I first played it, and I put 200 hours into this game on multiple occasions. Like, I beat this game probably 4 or 5 times. I loved it. The 3DS version is a little bit more streamlined, a little bit more user-friendly, though. Dragon Quest 8 can be found on the PlayStation 2. As of now, I am shocked that these two Dragon Quest games have not been released on the Nintendo Switch or on PC or something like that. Just like Dragon Quest 7, the 3DS version of the game is the superior way to play. There's just more stuff to be found on the world map. You get 2 extra party members, even though they're completely overpowered. It's a fantastic, fantastic game. To me, Dragon Quest VIII like revolutionized the genre whenever it came out on the PS2. It really showed off the power of what the PlayStation 2 can do, and it showed off what a 3D RPG should look like with a fully realized world map, turn-based battles, loads of fun. Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story can be found on the original Nintendo DS. I know that the 3DS version, just like the Dragon Quest games, the 3DS version was better than the DS version, had extra little doodads and things like that, but it's still a great game. The Mario and Luigi games are a whole lot of fun. You control both of them, and you fight turn-based battles, and they're very simple, but the stories are super charming. Basically, Bowser kind of eats the wrong thing. He blows up to like major, massive size, and he ends up swallowing Mario, Luigi, and Princess Toadstool, and they gotta rescue her, and, get out of him. So this is a whole lot of fun. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga can be found on the Game Boy Advance. This is the very first game in the Mario and Luigi franchise. It started off as, well, Super Mario RPG, and then that went to hell and back. So then they went off to Paper Mario, and that was its own little thing. But Mario & Luigi is much more of a traditional Mario RPG, and I really, really enjoyed this game whenever I first played it over on the Game Boy Advance. And again, the 3DS version is better. There's more quality of life stuff. There's extra additions that you won't be finding in the Game Boy Advance version, but it is over there. It is available. That is the original version. The original way to play is over on the Game Boy Advance. Monster Hunter Stories is on mobile platforms. This is the first real true Monster Hunter RPG featuring a world map. It's kind of like Monster Hunter meets Pokemon, I guess. I wasn't really into the original Monster Hunter whenever it first came out over on the PSP, but the Stories version, I think, is pretty neat. I really like this game whenever I played it on the 3DS, and I really liked the sequel over on the Nintendo Switch as well. So if you just are looking for, turn-based combat, if you're looking for Pokemon sort of stuff, if you're looking for a really cute, just charming storyline, that sort of thing, then I think that you really can't go wrong here with this one. Radiant Historia. This was first released on the Nintendo DS, but then we got the remake over on the 3DS. Unfortunately, can't play that one anymore, but the original, again, is still over on the DS, and even there, it's still so good! It is, the next best thing from Chrono Trigger. It is really just up there as one of the greats. This made my number one as far as my, top 10 best DS games, and I'm pretty sure it made my number one on the 3DS list as well. It's just that good. Basically, it follows a story of the world kind of turning into a desert, and you have to find the right timeline in order to go and save the world. And you can go through kind of like in a choose-your-own-adventure sort of way, and you can see alternate endings as you go through, and if you make a choice and you're like, oh, that's the wrong choice, well, then bitch, you're dead. But you can easily just go back and you can, do the right choice and, pick up where you left off. The battles are kind of strategy meets turn-based. They take place on a grid, and you can kind of push and pull your monsters around. You can set traps. You can just beat them up. It's great. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Soul Hackers is also on the Sega Saturn. Good luck with that. You're probably better off getting this one physically. Just saying. But this is another entry in the illustrious SMT series that has been going on back since the NES days. It's a dungeon crawler, though. First-person dungeon crawler. Turn-based battles, you have 6 party members, you go on through, Soul Hackers 2 was just recently released, and the two games don't really have all that much in common, to be quite honest with you. They both play very, very, very differently from one another. This is much more of a traditional SMT game from way back in the series whenever it was first-person dungeon crawling. So if that's up your alley, then be sure to check this one out. Squids Odyssey for the Switch, PC, and Wii U is odd. This is my first time actually hearing about it, I've got to say. But it looks to me as if it's like pool, I guess. You kind of stretch your squid out and you shoot it off, and then it goes and it hits the various enemies and it bounces around the screen. And it actually, the battles are turn-based. You go as on a turn, and then your enemies take a turn, and then you kind of bounce all over the place. It's just weird. It reminds me of, pinball, how you kind of, stretch, and you stop, and you aim, and then you boop, 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 and you hit all the enemies and all that kind of stuff. It looks cool. This might be a fun thing just to kind of pass the time away, It's different. It's from a French development team, so it's kind of out there, but it looks actually kind of fun, I've got to say. Tales of the Abyss. This can also be played originally on the PS2, where I own the game. It's, again, probably not as good as the 3DS version, just like some of the other remakes that we've seen and things like that, but It's there. It's on the PS2. It's one of the best Tales games that I've ever played. It follows Luke, who's kind of a little brat, but he changes and he develops over the course of the storyline, and it's a whole lot of fun. I love the characters. I love the storyline. It is long. It is involved, and this is a game that came out before like DLC was really a thing, so you get various costumes and things like that. It is just great. If you're looking for a good Tales game, then look no further than Tales of the Abyss. This one is definitely up there in the top 5 of the series. So we've been through many RPGs so far, but we're not done. Because there's one company left, and I decided to group all theirs together, that have 12, count them, 12 RPGs sitting on the 3DS that we can play elsewhere. And those are those Kemco RPGs. And honestly, don't really know much about them, so I'm going to be looking at the description of these games and showing you all the trailers and just kind of reading the description to you, because for the most part, all these Kemco RPGs, they just kind of meld together in your mind, if you know what I mean. Dragon Sinker, released for mobile, Switch, PC, PS4, Vita, and Xbox One. Employing 8-bit graphics and sound that harken back to the golden era of RPGs, Dragon Sinker brings a visual and audio feast to the table of hungry gamers starving for the nostalgia of the great classics of yesteryear. Scour the world in search of new companions and collect more than 16 jobs. Asdivine Cross on mobile, Switch, PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox. Harvey, an outlaw of little importance, gets himself trapped deep in his kingdom's dungeons. While imprisoned, he befriends a mysterious woman who claims to be the princess of the lands. Together, the two begin an escape that spans far beyond jail bars. As both friends and enemies begin to surface, Harvey realizes that the world of Asdivine is anything but at peace. Bonds of the Skies, released for mobile, Switch, PC, PS4, Vita, and Xbox. A fantasy RPG with a story of friendship between humans and gods. Elle and Nogard set off to look for the demon who cast the town into a sea of flames, and they find other gods in order to put a stop to its violence. Cronus Arc, released for mobile, Switch, PC, PS4, Vita, and Xbox One. The Chronos fragments are needed to prepare for the time rewinding, which only takes place once every 10 years. On their way to the Cronus Shrine to get the fragments, Loka and his teacher, Teth, are surrounded by a mysterious man named Geppel and his gang. They demand the fragments. While Teth plays for a time, Loka, the main character, rushes out of the cave on his own to fetch reinforcements. He is successful, but Teth and Geppel are nowhere to be found. Justice Chronicles, released for mobile, Switch, PC, PS4, PS5, and Xbox. Klein, a novice high beast knight, is sent on reconnaissance into Laft, the Earth Depths, where he comes across Alia, a battle maiden who suffered terrible injuries and is close to death. In order to help her, he forms a partnership with the god of death, Roos Levy. Isla lives on, but in return for the young knight must give up his life. In a world on the brink of war, the newly acquainted duo must fight destiny itself in order to save the world from the ever-creeping darkness that is threatening to consume everything, and once and for all, restore the balance of the world. Unlucky Mage, released on mobile. The various powers across Adamantia continent have long fought one another in an effort to gain supreme control over the vast regions of land. Each ruler and monarch thinking of none but themselves and leeching mercilessly off the labor of those citizens within their borders. But all that begins to change when an untrusting young mage named Jasper, living isolated from society, finds himself involved in a chain of events that is sure to go down in history as the greatest story ever told. I'm sure. Machine Knight, released on mobile. Travel beyond the gate and save a new world in turn-based fantasy RPG. To save his dying world from energy shortages, Frayne travels through a mysterious gate in an attempt to find a solution. Waiting for him there, however, are treachery and betrayal. Despite this, two heroines, Belle the priestess and the spirited Owlin, support Frayne throughout his troubles. Frayne, more determined than ever, sets out with his new two companions to defeat the dark forces and save the worlds beyond the gate. Maximize character potential through the Machina board by using points earned through battles and completing quests that you can change classes and power up your skills. Symphony of Eternity, released on mobile as well. Find the legendary weapon in a fantasy RPG full of dramas with monsters, elves, dwarves, and golems. Christ is on a quest with his golem friend Dauturu to find Regratloot, which is said to be able to grant any wish. On his travels, they come across a young lady being attacked by demons, and they rescue her. What fate awaits Christ, Dauturu, and the mysterious young lady? This is a retro-style fantasy RPG set in royal times, where players can master a range of styles and choose fighting combinations in order to defeat enemies in turn-based battles. Journey to Crescia, released on mobile. Become a savior from the Outer Realm to bring everlasting peace to Crescia in an epic fantasy RPG. While attempting to skip out on a homework assignment and meet up with his friends at the arcade, a teenager by the name of Eustace is suddenly enveloped by a blinding light and transported to Crescia, a world where fantasy meets reality. Soon after, he learns that he's been summoned as a savior to deliver Crescia's people from the threat of an overlord. Thinking everything happening around him is simply a dream, Eustace readily agrees to the task of saving the world and begins preparing for what is inevitably to be far more than he ever bargained for. Alphadia, released on mobile. It's been almost a century since the end of the Energy War. Yet, despite the armistice agreement signed between opposing sides, the Schwarzschild Empire has once again begun plotting world domination as it starts to conquer and occupy one nation after another. It's during this time that Ash and Karim, two residents of a small town on the frontier, rescue a young woman and her escort as they're being pursued by foreign soldiers. But who is this mysterious girl? And what fate is in store for Ash and those with him as they attempt to help her fulfill her mission? Find out as this dramatic story begins to unfold. Infinite Dunamis, released on mobile. One day, on his way home from a job in the royal city, a gifted engineer by the name of Luke comes across a young woman, Estelle, being attacked in the cave near his village. After fending off her attackers, he attempts to pull her from a heap of discarded mechanical parts, only to discover she herself is half robot. Somewhat curious about what he stumbled onto, Luke decides to take Estelle home and fix her up. But little does he know about the chain of events he is about to find himself tangled up in. And finally, Grincia, released on mobile. This is a fantasy RPG with a quest involving twin goddesses and 6 pieces of treasure. The main characters are a family of treasure hunters, and they're joined by a wide range of other characters, a wide range of allies, and many other ways to enjoy the adventure. I don't know why it's phrased like that, but hey, it is what it is. And with that, we have reached 28 games that on the 3DS that you can play in other ways. I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. I actually had a pretty fun time putting it all together and learning about all these RPGs, because many of them I didn't really know about, but many of them I kind of want to get now because they look kind of interesting. So, maybe you always learn something new from these videos. It's always shocking to me what I learn whenever I make these videos. So I do hope that all of y'all enjoyed this, had a good time sitting here with me going over all these games, and as always, have a good day.